If you're worried about how well you'll age, know this. The number one predictor of whether you'll live better and longer or shorter and frailer is your aerobic fitness. I tested mine recently and I was shocked by my score. Today, I'll share with you what I've learned about what aerobic fitness is, why it matters so much for your quantity and quality of life, how to measure it, how to train it, and what my surprising test results can tell you about exercise and age. Hi, I'm Kevin Mepham. I'm 63, and for 17 years now, I've been obsessed with how you and I can build lives that thrive as we age, and right now, by focusing on the fundamentals. Welcome to Thrivespan. And it doesn't get more fundamental than aerobic, aka cardiorespiratory fitness. That is how much oxygen your body is capable of consuming to make energy to do work. Its metric is something called VO2 max, the maximum, max, volume, V, of oxygen, O2, that your body can consume per minute during strenuous exercise per kilogram of body weight. The higher your VO2 max, the more energy you can produce, so the more active you can be, and the longer you can stay active, as we'll see. Your aerobic capacity is a function of four things. Your lungs, how much oxygen they can take in and load into your blood. Your heart, how much oxygenated blood it can pump. Your blood vessels, how much oxygenated blood they can deliver to your muscle cells. And your cells' mitochondria, how much energy they can produce from the oxygen they get. Why should you care? Because the higher your aerobic capacity, the longer you'll live and the better you'll live. First, longer living. Two large research studies involving hundreds of thousands of participants found that having low VO2 max, bottom 25%, nearly tripled the risk of death over a 10-year period compared to having an above average VO2 max in the 50th to 75th percentile. That makes a low VO2 max as deadly as end-stage kidney disease and twice as dangerous to your health as smoking, coronary artery disease, diabetes, or high blood pressure. But as bleak as that sounds, there's a massive silver lining to it. Because while you can't change your age as you age, you can absolutely change your aerobic capacity, as I'll explain. And simply boosting your VO2 max from that low to above average will cut your risk of death by 65%. Raising it again from above average to high cuts your remaining risk by 45%. And it doesn't stop there. Increasing your VO2 max from high to elite to the top 3% reduces your risk of death by a further 20%. Come on now. Elite level? Is that even attainable by regular people like you and me? We'll get to that. But we got to talk about better living first. Because you and I don't just want more years in our life, we want more life in our years. And that means being active, and that means activities. Maybe for you, those activities are climbing the stairs to visit a friend's apartment, or playing pickleball, or having good sex. Each of these example activities takes an amount of energy, which requires an amount of oxygen, which requires a minimum VO2 max capability to produce. If you're able to do those activities now, you have that minimum VO2 max now. And maybe you take for granted that you'll always have it, but you won't, because your VO2 max falls as you age. Let's say you're a middling 50th percentile 50-year-old. If you're male, your middling VO2 max is 38. If female, it's 32. Climbing stairs, playing pickleball leisurely, having good sex all require a VO2 max around 30. So middling you at 38 or 32 VO2 max can do all those at age 50. From 50 to 80, though, your VO2 max drops by 35 to 40%. So by 80, your middling male VO2 max is no longer 38, it's dropped to 24. and your middling female VO2 max has dropped from 32 to 21. Climbing stairs, pickleball, good sex, not anymore. Now you're far below the 30 VO2 max threshold they require, and you're dangerously close to falling below the 20 VO2 max red line, which is where you're at a high risk of frailty and of losing your independence. And remember, this is for the 50th percentile, these numbers that we're spitting, meaning half the population, maybe including you, is in even worse shape and will drop below that VO2 max 30 activity threshold and that VO2 max 20 frailty red line even sooner if you're not already there. If you do nothing. But instead, you take control of your life and you start consistent aerobic exercise, you can actually raise your VO2 max so that when you do eventually get it to its peak, you'll be declining from a much higher point, meaning it will take much longer before you cross the 30 activity threshold and the 20 frailty red line. How much do you need to raise it? Well, to still be active at age 80 with a 30 VO2 max, at age 50, you need a 48 VO2 max so that it can fall from 48 down to 30 in the next 30 years. That's well into the high level for men, that 48 VO2 max, and it's elite level for women. Is that even attainable? Yes, it is. I'm your proof, and I'll tell you how. Like I said, I'm 63. Before I started my Thrivespan journey 17 years ago, I was a flabby, pot-bellied, lifelong non-athlete. Starting from that zero level, I began exercising for 1 hour a day. 17 years of consistent daily exercise investment, well, that compounds like the money in your retirement savings account. Except this is your retirement fitness account. And just like you can't enjoy your retirement without money, you can't enjoy it without energy. Anyway, 3 years ago when I turned 60, 14 years into my Thrivespan journey, I took my first VO2 Max test. Not a test with a Scantron sheet and multiple choice questions and a number 2 pencil. I wish. I do well on those tests. No, a VO2 Max test involves strapping on a face-hugging mask, then running on a treadmill at increasing speed and incline until the mask's sensors detect that you can't consume any more oxygen. You've hit your max. Then you keep going until you can't go anymore and tap out, and that's your maximum heart rate. This test is, by definition, a sufferfest. What was my result? In 14 years, through consistent 1 hour daily exercise, I'd gone from that flabby non-athlete to a VO2 max of 49.5. Elite level fitness for a man my age at 60. Look at me. If that guy can bootstrap himself up to elite, so can you. Well, 3 years later, a couple months ago, I finally retested. It was just as strenuous as I remembered, and now I remembered why it had taken me 3 years to retest. When the tech gave me my results, I was hoping to see that I'd held on to that 49.5 despite being 3 years older. I hadn't. I'd actually raised my VO2 max by a lot, from 49.5 to 53.9, elite level for a man 20 years younger than me. How? There are 2 methods to build your aerobic fitness, and I'll tell you which one I use in a minute. Method 1 is zone 2 training. There are 5 of these exercise intensity zones, from zone 1, easy walking, to zone 5, all-out effort. Zone 2 training primarily builds your aerobic base, your foundation, but in the process, it also raises your VO2 max. Zone 2 is cardio exercise, walking, jogging, cycling, rowing, etc., at a steady level of exertion where you can speak in complete sentences, but barely. If you can easily carry on a conversation, you're in zone 1, push harder. If you're huffing and puffing, you're in zone 3 or beyond, ease up if what you're trying to do is zone 2 training. Alternatively, because I don't like to mutter out loud while I'm on the bike path and scare innocent passersby, I like to gauge zone 2 as the maximum pace at which I can breathe in solely through my nose. If I have to start mouth breathing to suck in more air, I've overshot zone 2 and I need to slow down. Now, the benefits of zone 2 training come from accumulating lots of time in zone 2 over the years that you train. So it's not the most time efficient way to build your VO2 max. That would be zone 5 high intensity interval training. Interval training is cardio exercise in 3 to 8 minute intervals at the maximum level of effort you can sustain for that interval, followed by a recovery where you're still moving but at a very low intensity, followed by another high intensity interval. For example, the famous Norwegian 4x4. After your warm up, you go 4 minutes at maximum effort, 3 minutes of slow recovery, and you repeat that for 4 rounds, after which you have gotten 16 minutes at maximum intensity, zone 5. When it comes to specifically building VO2 max, focused zone 5 work like this is the biggest bang for your time buck. So how do I train? It's simple. Like I said, for 17 years now, I've exercised 1 hour a day, no more, 7 days a week. The first 9 years, I only did cardio. And it's crazy to believe, but I was training. I went from that non-athlete to training to race triathlons and 5Ks. Now, in the last 8 years, I alternate days between 1 hour runs for aerobic capacity and 1 hour weightlifting sessions for strength. I'm no longer training to race, rather to be as fit, strong, and active as possible now and as I age. For that cardio, my run days are nearly all zone 2. For the occasional zone 5, if I must, I have a perfect little 3-minute sprint uphill and upstairs at a nearby park, repeated 5 times. I absolutely dread that workout. I don't do it anywhere near as often as I could. But the benefits I'm getting are coming from the zone 2. That's it. That's all it takes to go from pot-belly desk jockey to elite level VO2 max. Consistent, intentional exercise, time, and patience. If I can do it, so can you. Start how I did, walking. Your first goal, the most important goal, is simply to build a consistent exercise habit. Then, once that habit's in place and that foundation is starting to get into place, you can up the intensity to zone 2, build up your aerobic base some more, and then once you've done that, then you can consider adding in some zone 5 sessions, particularly valuable if you're short on time. See your doctor before starting strenuous exercise. It's not an excuse to put off strenuous exercise. It's an excuse to stop putting off your annual physical. And make sure that your exercise habit includes strength training, not just cardio. Strength is right up there with aerobic fitness when it comes to living longer and better. Don't wait a decade after you start exercising to start building muscle, like I did. Engage a trainer when you start doing strength training to teach you how to lift safely and effectively. You're not going to need one necessarily at every session, but you definitely need one when you start, and then periodically after that to adjust your workouts as you get more capable. Look, it is never too late to start improving your aerobic fitness. I was 46 when I started. At the same time, the sooner the better. This week, Start making that consistent investment in your fitness. Give your VO2 max as many years as possible to grow and compound before you inevitably start drawing it down in your old age. Don't put this off for another 10 years, any more than you'd put off investing for retirement for another 10 years. Because what good is all that money if you're too frail and out of breath to enjoy it? What you just heard is just one of the harsh truths I wish I could tell my 40-something self. Watch this video next to hear all 8 of those harsh truths. I guarantee at least 3 will hit home for you. Till next time, thrive now for life.